For more than 100 years, scientists believed the ancient human world was simple. There was Homo sapiens, our own species, and there were Neanderthals, the powerful cousins who vanished tens of thousands of years ago. Two human kinds sharing a planet, one surviving, one disappearing. That story felt complete, stable, and finished. Museums taught it, textbooks printed it, few questioned it. Then, in the early 21st century, a discovery so small it could rest on a fingernail shattered that certainty forever. In 2008, deep inside Denisova Cave in the Altai Mountains of southern Siberia, archaeologists uncovered a fragment of bone just 12 millimeters long. It came from the pinky finger of a young girl who had lived and died more than 40,000 years ago. The fragment looked unremarkable, easy to overlook among thousands of animal bones and stone tools. No one at the site suspected it would change how humanity understood itself. The bone was carefully catalogued and sent to Leipzig, Germany, to the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology. There, geneticist Svante Pääbo and his team specialized in extracting ancient DNA from remains most scientists considered impossible to analyze. Ancient DNA is fragile, broken by time, contaminated by bacteria, and often destroyed completely. Most bones yield nothing at all. The team began with mitochondrial DNA, the type inherited from the mother and more likely to survive over deep time. As the sequences emerged, something immediately felt wrong. The genetic code did not match modern humans. It also did not match Neanderthals, whose DNA Pääbo's team had already reconstructed. This DNA belonged to something else entirely. When the analysis was complete, the conclusion was unavoidable. This individual represented a previously unknown human lineage, one that had split from our ancestors nearly 1 million years ago. In 2010, the results were published in Nature, and overnight, the human family tree grew a new branch. The world now knew of a third ancient human group. They were named after the cave where the bone was found, the Denisovans. What made the discovery unsettling was not just the existence of a new human kind, but how little else existed. Neanderthals had left behind skulls, skeletons, burial sites, and hundreds of tools. Denisovans, by contrast, were known from a pinky finger, a few oversized teeth, and scattered fragments too small to identify by shape alone. An entire branch of humanity had been discovered not by anatomy, but by molecules. Scientists tried to imagine what Denisovans might have looked like, but without a skull, any reconstruction felt speculative. Geneticists turned to DNA methylation patterns, chemical markers that influence how genes are expressed and can hint at physical traits. These patterns suggested Denisovans likely had dark hair, dark eyes, and broad, powerful faces. But the picture remained blurry, more shadow than form. As more Denisovan DNA was sequenced, another surprise emerged. Denisovans were genetically diverse, more so than all sequenced Neanderthals combined. This meant they were not a small, isolated population living in a single cave. They had been widespread, ancient, and evolving independently for hundreds of thousands of years. Then came the most startling revelation of all. When scientists compared Denisovan DNA to modern populations, they found clear traces of Denisovan ancestry in living people. Populations in Melanesia, Papua New Guinea, Australia, and parts of Southeast Asia carried Denisovan DNA, sometimes making up as much as 5 or 6% of their genome. Denisovans were not just an extinct curiosity, they were ancestors. The question now was unavoidable. If Denisovans had spread so widely, where were their bones? The next answer came from one of the harshest environments on Earth. High on the Tibetan Plateau, more than 3,000 meters above sea level, lies Baishia Karst Cave. Even today, visitors struggle to breathe there. Winters are brutal, and oxygen levels are dangerously low.
In 1980, a Buddhist monk exploring the cave discovered a heavy, weathered jawbone embedded in sediment. Sensing it was unusual, he handed it to local authorities. The fossil was placed in a museum and largely forgotten for decades. Nearly 40 years later, scientists were finally able to study the jaw in detail. Any hope of extracting DNA quickly faded. The environment had destroyed it. But instead of giving up, researchers turned to proteins, the durable molecular building blocks of bone. Using collagen fingerprinting, they extracted protein fragments preserved inside the fossil's mineralized core. The results were unmistakable. The jaw belonged to a Denisovan. Dating revealed it was at least 160,000 years old, far older than the Siberian finger bone. For the first time, Denisovans were confirmed outside Siberia and at extreme altitude. The location mattered. Later genetic studies showed that modern Tibetans carry a version of the EPA-S1 gene that allows their bodies to use oxygen efficiently at high altitude. That gene did not come from Homo sapiens. It came from Denisovans. Long before modern humans reached the plateau, Denisovans had already adapted to thin air, and their genes still shape lives today. Yet even with this discovery, Denisovans remained faceless. Scientists still lacked a complete skull. That face, it turned out, had been hidden for nearly a century. In 1933, during bridge construction near Harbin in northeastern China, a laborer unearthed a massive human skull. Afraid it would be seized during the Japanese occupation, he wrapped it carefully and lowered it into an abandoned well. There it remained, hidden from science, for almost 90 years. Only after the man's death did his family reveal the skull's existence. In 2018, it was finally delivered to researchers. The cranium was enormous, with thick brow ridges, a wide face, and a brain case comparable in size to modern humans. The skull ignited fierce debate. Some scientists argued it represented a new species, which they named Homo longi, or dragon man. Others suspected it might be Denisovan, but without DNA, proof remained elusive. The breakthrough came from an unlikely place. Hardened dental calculus, ancient plaque, still clung to the skull's teeth. Dental calculus can trap DNA and proteins, sealing them away for hundreds of thousands of years. In 2025, researchers carefully extracted material from the plaque. Many attempts failed. Only a handful of samples produced usable genetic data. But those few were enough. The mitochondrial DNA clustered tightly with Denisovan samples from Siberia, particularly older lineages. At last, the mystery was solved. Dragon Man was Denisovan. For the first time, humanity had a complete Denisovan skull, a face to the ghost species. As if that were not enough, new techniques soon revealed Denisovans even where no bones existed at all. Scientists began extracting ancient DNA directly from cave sediments, genetic traces left behind by skin cells, blood, and waste. At Baishia Karst Cave, Denisovan DNA appeared layer after layer, spanning tens of thousands of years. In Laos, protein analysis from a single tooth confirmed Denisovan presence deep in Southeast Asia. The landscape itself carried their memory. One of the most extraordinary discoveries came from Denisova Cave itself. A small bone fragment belonged to a child who lived about 90,000 years ago. Her DNA told an astonishing story. Her mother was Neanderthal, her father was Denisovan. She was a first-generation hybrid. This single individual proved that ancient human groups did not simply replace one another. They met, they interbred, they shared genes that still shape humanity today. Denisovans never truly vanished. Their DNA lives on in millions of people across Asia and the Pacific. It shapes immune responses, altitude adaptation, and survival in extreme environments. They were not a side branch, they were a major part of the human story. As ancient DNA continues to emerge from bones, teeth, soil, and even dental plaque, one truth becomes clear. Human evolution is not a straight line. It is a tangled web of encounters, exchanges, and lost worlds. And somewhere,
Buried in sediment or locked inside a molecule, the next discovery is waiting to rewrite everything we think we know about who we are.